We've been lied to by our own eyes. In the world of games, we've made peace with a concept called the iframe, Invincibility Frames. It's that tiny window, a fraction of a second, where a character simply quits reality. Bullets pass through them like light through a window. To a game engine like Returnal, this is simply a 0 or a 1. But Returnal isn't a spreadsheet. If we treat the Astra suit like a real piece of hardware, if we look at the dash presented as a ballistics event, we find that this machine shouldn't just be impossible, it should be a localized catastrophe. Today, I want to calculate the energy, the heat, and the biological cost of recursion. First, let's get our constant straight. Frame-by-frame analysis at 60 FPS shows Celine's dash covering roughly 12 meters. I'm using this by going from this little plant here to the flower over there. It nearly covers the whole gap. It's about 12 steps. It takes 14 frames, or exactly 0.233 seconds. To put that into perspective, she's traveling at 185 kilometers an hour. For a car, that's just a fast afternoon. For a human on foot, it's a bullet. But speed isn't just a scalar. What kills you is the delta, the acceleration. People have traveled that fast in cars. Celine hits that 51.5 meters per second in just 2 frames. The math here is terrifying. That turns out to 159 Gs. In real world, 10 Gs will make a pilot black out. 50 Gs is a fatal car crash. However, at 159 Gs, your internal organs don't just shift, they undergo a phase change. At that acceleration, your heart would weigh as much as a cast iron block. Without a secondary layer of technology, Celine wouldn't just be injured, she'd be a liquid. Motion, however, isn't free. To move roughly 100 kilograms of mass to 51.5 meters per second, this would require a massive injection of kinetic energy. To get the kinetic energy equals 1/2 the mass velocity squared, which comes to 132,612 joules, 132 kilojoules. However, that assumes she's moving in a vacuum. She isn't. Atropos has air. It has an atmosphere. At 185 kilometers an hour, that air acts like a brick wall. We have to account for the drag. She's fighting 1 kilonewton of resistance. To overcome this and reach her destination in 0.2 of a second, her suit has to output power that borderlines nuclear. Work divided by time equals force times distance divided by time. This would come to 660,000 watts. That's roughly the equivalent of 885 horsepower. That's more than a McLaren 720S. Condensing that into a backpack, that means every time you press B, a hand grenade's worth of energy is detonated behind her shoulder blades to push her forward. What I want to know is, where does that energy go? Thermodynamics is a cruel master. It says energy cannot be destroyed, but when Celine stops, she stops instantly. All that kinetic energy becomes heat. If the suit doesn't vent 132 kilojoules instantly, Celine is wearing a 3,000 degree oven. Take a closer look at the Astra suit. See those orange slots on the ribs? Those aren't LEDs. They are high flux heat exchangers. The suit is likely using closed loop coolant to dump the heat directly into the atmosphere. This is probably why you see little wisps as she moves. That's the heat being generated. So here's something cool to think about. The invincibility just might be a side effect. The suit is venting so much thermal radiation, it's creating a localized plasma sheath, a pocket of ionized air that vaporizes any projectile that gets too close. Even if the suit handles the heat, how does it handle the stop? Here's the darkest part of Astra's engineering. They must have implemented an inertial nullifier, a system that projects a microgravitational field inside the suit to keep the pilot's brain from hitting the skull at 1500 meters a second. But if the system lags even for 1 millisecond, the cycle ends, not because of a monster, but because of a hardware glitch. When we look at the suit, we shouldn't really see a miracle. we should be seeing the desperate gamble. A machine designed to keep a human being functional in an environment that's physically impossible. The iframe isn't a gift, it's a ballistics event, and on Atropos, the physics always win.